one nagging worry pretty much every electric vehicle driver has? Range anxiety. The constant thought of, where exactly is the next plug? Well, looking at the newest data on the 2026 mobility landscape, it really looks like we're about to see a complete flip in how we deal with that fear. In this explainer, we're going to dive into a truly fascinating shift, how we are moving away from relying entirely on fixed, stationary chargers to a world of dynamic, mobile energy. It's a simple but totally radical idea that flips the whole infrastructure script on its head. Just think about it for a second. Instead of mapping your entire road trip or daily commute around where public charging networks happen to be located, what if the charger just came directly to you? Now, I know it sounds a bit like science fiction, but digging into the source material, this is rapidly becoming a reality for commercial fleets, stranded drivers, and even people living in dense cities. And this comparison right here perfectly illustrates what we're calling the mobility flip. We are literally moving from the old, stressful way of hunting down stationary plugs and dealing with all those annoying construction delays and grid upgrades to a seamless new reality where the energy actually seeks out the driver. It isn't just a slight convenience upgrade either. It completely eliminates the geographical bottlenecks that have held up EV adoption for years. To really understand why this flip is an absolute necessity, we've got to look at the sheer, mind-boggling power demands of modern electric vehicles. Today's ultra-fast chargers are hitting 350 kilowatts and even higher. It's awesome, because it gives you an 80% charge in about 15 minutes. But here's the catch. You can't just drop a massive 350 kilowatt charger on any random street corner. It puts an astonishing amount of strain on the electrical grid. That leads us right into Section 1, AI and smart energy, and how we are optimizing the grid. If we're going to be moving massive amounts of power around, we really need a brain to manage it all. That's where this breakdown of bidirectional charging comes in. Let's look at vehicle-to-grid, or V2G. This is huge because it turns EVs from grid liabilities into actual virtual power plants. It's not a one-way street anymore. Vehicles pull energy when demand on the grid is low and then pump stored power back in when demand spikes. And with vehicle-to-home, your car can literally act as a giant backup battery to keep your lights on during a blackout. It's basically the ultimate energy life hack. Artificial intelligence management systems, like the platforms built by Dreeves, are essentially acting as electrical air traffic controllers, working entirely behind the scenes. By predicting demand, they make sure massive commercial fleets are charging when electricity is dirt cheap, and they might even sell that power back to the utility when it's expensive. This load balancing keeps the grid from frying and transforms EV charging from a massive expense into a revenue-generating machine. Okay, let's move on to Section 2, mobile power, or as I like to call it, chargers on wheels. So all that AI is great, but what happens if you're stranded totally off the grid where software alone can't save you? Looking at the global data, there are some incredible hardware solutions stepping up. Let's head over to Australia for a second. A company there called Alpine Energy has built the MGen M40. Think about the vast, remote stretches of the outback. You simply can't pave those over with permanent chargers. So instead of bringing the car to the infrastructure, they put the infrastructure on wheels and drive it directly to the car. And it is honestly amazing how fast these mobile rescues happen. This mobile powerhouse can add 65 kilometers of driving range to a dead battery in exactly 15 minutes. Imagine a fleet operating out of a remote mining site, or just a regular driver stranded on a regional highway. With a 40 kilowatt DC output, this unit rolls up, plugs in, and literally in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee, gives that vehicle enough juice to get safely back to civilization. But this tech isn't strictly for the remote outback either. Over in the Philippines, a company called AC Mobility is tackling a completely different headache: enterprise fleet logistics. They've launched a service called Power on Wheels. See, lots of businesses want to go electric to hit their sustainability goals, but they don't have the space or the upfront cash to rip up their parking lots for fixed chargers. So AC Mobility solves this by bringing the charger on a trick directly to the corporate office or condo building. We're talking about delivering up to 120 kilowatts of DC fast charging right to your bumper. The real lifesaver here, though, is how it handles Metro Manila traffic, which is notoriously gridlocked. If a driver gets stuck in traffic and their battery drops below 5%, the company dispatches a dedicated mobile tech to give them a critical emergency top-up on the spot. They can even jumpstart a dead 12-volt battery right there on the highway. It's essentially an entire charging ecosystem on wheels. Now, if you didn't think that was futuristic enough, check out what ERG is rolling out in China's super dense urban areas: completely autonomous EV charging robots. While Australia is dealing with vast distances, High-density, multi-story car parks have a different problem. The dedicated EV charging spots are always taken. So instead of you waiting around for a spot to open up, the charger literally unplugs itself from a wall station and drives over to you. It is totally wild to picture. You just tap a button on your app to share your parking spot, and this LiDAR-equipped robot navigates the garage like a massive high-tech Roomba. Then it uses a robotic mechanical arm to plug right into your car with millimeter precision. These things carry battery packs up to 215 kilowatt hours, so they can take a car from 10% back up to optimal levels in under an hour. And because they freely roam around, just one fleet of robots can service over 400 different EV owners in a single apartment complex. It's a brilliant way to save space. Which brings us nicely to Section 3, the seamless charging ecosystem, and how we actually make this viable for everyone. With all these mobile units, robots, and AI software, how on earth do businesses actually afford to do this without pulling their hair out? The source material points to a massive financial shift called Charging as a Service, or CaaS. Put yourself in the shoes of a fleet manager. You know logistics inside and out, but you probably know zero about high-voltage electricity. With CaaS, a third-party expert comes in, installs the hardware, runs the software, handles all the maintenance, and just charges you a predictable, flat monthly fee. Basically, it means companies don't have to drain their bank accounts to buy complex hardware on day one. By outsourcing the whole shebang to the experts, you shift away from scary upfront capital expenses and move to a simple, manageable operating bill. It completely de-risks the switch to electric. Fleet operators can just get back to what they actually do best, running their business, while the cost experts handle the grid constraints and the smart AI balancing we talked about earlier. To tie all these pieces together, the market is aggressively consolidating so that these networks aren't totally fragmented. Thanks to interoperability and roaming agreements, a driver can just plug in seamlessly, whether they're getting zapped by a mobile rescue charger, pulling into a multi-fuel hub that has both EV charging and heavy-duty hydrogen, or just using a standard stationary plug. Digital apps mop thousands of these points and handle the payments instantly in the background. The ultimate goal is for this whole ecosystem to become virtually invisible to the driver. So, I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. As the charger starts coming directly to you, are we witnessing the beginning of the end for the traditional charging station? If artificial intelligence is actively balancing our grids, and robots are navigating our parking garages, and mobile batteries are rescuing us on the highway, maybe the days of waiting in line at a fixed charging pillar really are numbered. It completely rewrites the rules of the road. I hope this explainer gave you a whole new perspective on the future of mobility, because it absolutely changed mine.